Hey guys, what's up? It's Jules here for WhatCulture.com, joined as ever by the loot box that always gives ultra rares, Scott Telford. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I don't like being compared to a loot box, but I'll take it.
Well, you know, you're a loot box with guaranteed results. I don't even have to put money in. You're the free premium loot box that I got.
I'm the daily.
Yeah, you're the daily.
I'm the daily.
But he always gives me that little bit.
So you need to keep going, just a little bit.
Anyway, if we're together, give me only one thing. It's time for some news, so let's hit that jingle.
Hot dang, there's news, give it all you got. I guess it's time for Jules and Scott.
I can't keep jumping the chairs, Jules.
God,
it's not made for jumping.
Stupid gimmick, isn't it? Right? Anyway, speaking of stupid gimmicks, we're talking about Anthem today because I don't know if you guys have been aware, but it's not doing too well. And we're not just harshing on it because it's the cool thing to do. It just so happens to be that they were given a loaded gun and then they shot themselves in both feet and then the head.
A little bit, yeah. The thing to pass out is that I feel incredibly sorry for the vast majority. Well, I feel very sorry for Bioware.
Yeah.
Because if you look into Kotaku's report about the reality of the way that the game was developed, they had for the most part, a lack of leadership. Casey Hudson left towards the beginning of the project. They had a replacement creative team, and they sort of just eventually got it over the line by swapping and changing out different creative directors, and so it got there. But the vision that people got was obviously very put together, very hurriedly put together to please different people.
I mean, to be fair, we actually spoke about this at great length on a podcast, and you can go check that out. Do we have links in the description?
I don't know at this point, but I will just say, just Google the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. You'll find it on iTunes, Spotify, Podbay, Podbean, everywhere else you can think of. We're everywhere now, all up in your logos.
We cannot stop us. But so it's something that we've discussed at great length about Anthem being this brilliant idea that unfortunately just stumbled across the finish line, like you were saying, and now it seems that afterwards it's not been treated very well with reviews that have been keeping up with the sort of live service, with updates, with drop rates being changed and messing around with players, with the player base itself dwindling to the point where they're not even sure if they're going to see it through to the season's end.
Or that you can even matchmake.
So if you're not aware about this one, Jim Sterling did a little thing about it 2 days ago, and he basically said that there are so few players on Anthem that the game engine is struggling to actually find matches for those players who are still in there. Now, that is saying two things. One, that it's horrendous that the player base has dwindled that far already.
Yeah, that fast as well.
And two, that there isn't actually a proper infrastructure in place to counter for this. They didn't see failure as an option, which is great in principle, but that planning or lack of planning has really come and bit them in the arse.
That general mentality is kind of compounding all the issues as well, because they did talk about a 10-year content plan and these ideas of supporting things in the future. The latest thing, and the reason that we're talking especially today, is that the 3 current creative leads have now apparently moved on to other projects. So
that's absolutely. I'm surprised, but I'm also at the same time not surprised, because it seems like, I don't want to use the term rats fleeing a sinking ship, but it definitely seems that they are moving on in a time when creative leads and structure and stability are what's needed more than ever. So it's almost like they're just washing their hands with it. Sorry guys, we gave it the best we could, right, we're off now.
And it's like that sort of business mentality, and I'll read some quotes and stuff, but like that general business mentality is what completely pervaded a word?
Nope. Pervaded
is a word. That general mentality was all across the development overall. I'm going to go with pervaded. Because that idea of prioritizing the business thing was why a lot of the creative ideas just couldn't get off the ground, and why they took years to implement even a base version of the game. And then when they struggled with the Frostbite engine, they had to go back to the drawing board and then present a new version of the game to Patrick Soderlund from DICE to try and show off the way that it was working. But that idea of nailing down a creative vision never came. And it's something that you can totally contrast with the likes of Neil Druckmann or Cory Barlog or whatever, people that lead their games from front to back. Anyway, so for now, the 3 sort of go-to creative leads that we had on the project, Mike Gamble, Jonathan Warner, and Mark Darrah, have apparently all moved on to different projects. Although, when this happened, Mike Gamble did a tweet saying that the people to get in touch with, I forget the name of the second guy, but one of them is Chad Robertson. He's one of the newest. Oh, Ben Irving is the other guy. Chad Roberts. Chad Robertson. He's the new lead producer. And so he then tweeted out saying that they're 100% committed to Anthem. We want to make sure that we aren't over-promising, so our updates on what's coming in the game will be focused on when we have things completed.
Which is annoying because they already released a roadmap of what's going to go ahead, which was like, a couple of weeks ago. That had people pissed off because loads of content was being pushed and shuffled around or not even there. And now they're saying, right, okay, we have just promised all of this stuff, which already was delayed. Now we're going to delay it further while we try and figure out what's going on. Like, it's almost got to the point. It's almost got to the point where you just need to go, Anthem isn't working, and we're going to take it away and we're going to retweak it. And if you say that doesn't happen, look at Final Fantasy XI. That when that launched, that was a complete and utter mess. They literally took it down and relaunched it as a World Reborn, and it came back to critical success, fan praise. Like, you can ask for a better relaunch, but sometimes it is better to just go, look, it is broken, we need to fix this.
So another update was, so the chat put that out as the new lead producer and said, look, don't worry, 100% still committed and everything. And then obviously everything blew up, and the likes of like Games Radar did a write-up saying like everyone's moved on to Dragon Age 4. I think it was Mark Dara then got back on Twitter, one of the original creatives, and said, look, support and commitment has not changed. He said, we're still 100% committed and supporting. But those are just kind of platitudes. They're just sort of words around the side. Like they don't, of course you're supporting it, of course you're committed. There's not actually anything material there whatsoever.
In the same breath, I could say we're still technically supporting Panel Pals. Just because we haven't put out a video of it on the comics channel in over a year and a half doesn't mean that it's dead.
You're still committed.
I'm still committed.
I'm
still committed. You know?
Yeah, and so like one of the other things to point out as well is that they had a live stream, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, where they were going to show off the new raid. That got delayed because apparently Fiberwire was down in the area, so they had to delay it.
Of course it was.
Which sucks if that's true. I mean, I'm not going to say they're liars. Of course it's true. Assumedly, don't want to 100% believe them, but whatever. They couldn't put the live stream out, but they did put the update out. So by the time the live stream had happened, all the player base had played the thing they were supposed to be demoing. So when they did the live stream anyway, all the chat got on and tried to ask them questions. Apparently they weren't very receptive in the chat. Because they obviously, at that point, if you're on the project, you're like, oh god, I just want to get through this. But that didn't help. And so you've kind of got this massive disconnect between Anthem and the devs and the sort of like, the business side of it or the creative side of it, and the community just going, what the living hell is going on? These things are being delayed and then not being demoed properly, and now you've got the leads all over the place. It just kind of seems like it's on fire.
Like, I do feel really sorry for them because at no point do I feel like Bioware set out to make a bad game. I don't feel like EA basically set out to make a bad game. No one sets out to just go, let's just do absolute crap unless you are making shovelware for the sake of doing it.
And I would still at that point recommend the Kotaku deep dive on it because the original version of Anthem was way more like an open world Dark Souls, go out and retrieve stuff type
But unfortunately, you can't judge games on their intent. You can only judge them on the content. And unfortunately, the content has not left... they've not left the player base content. That is very, very for true. It's a shame because there are elements in Anthem that are actually brilliant. Like it can be a really, really fun game. It doesn't have the support or drive to make me feel as a player that I would want to invest in it. You've got all of these people standing up the front saying, like you say, platitudes of just like, don't worry guys, come on, just stick with it, we'll get there in the end. You're not making me think to myself, well, I ain't gonna buy a season pass, I ain't gonna buy any of these loot boxes because this could go tomorrow. This feels like it could have the plug pulled on it at any second.
So a couple of things there as well is you were mentioning about games getting support and turning things around with the Final Fantasy example. No Man's Sky, like Hello Games, obviously at the center of one of the biggest controversies this generation, if not all time. Literally just got off Twitter, just got off social media, put their heads down, and literally for a whole year were just radio silent until they had a full meaty update to put out. And you can obviously make your own opinion on No Man's Sky, but at least they went back and started putting things out there.
The player base for No Man's Sky, I actually had a quick look into it.
It's pretty big.
Was actually huge. Was so much bigger than I thought that it was going to be. And that shows testament of a fan base that's willing to give that chance because they can see that there is an element there. I wonder if Anthem has the same commitment.
I don't know. I mean, those three people that I mentioned before, because the whole thing that Casey Hudson said for Dragon Age is that it will be another live service game, which is like no one wants these things.
This live service thing has really like cropped up recently, and it's really stunted a lot of games. I feel like we'll be doing a podcast on it soon about sort of like when a live service game's not a service.
When it's not alive.
Yeah, it's just not. It's a really strange business practice to have started to adopt because you're basically just saying like, can we just put out AAA?
Well, they're trying to
like AAA versions of early access.
It's like it's trying to find it's a conversation for like a wider conversation, but it's trying to find a solution to the budgetary problems that they have in development. And it's like that initially was a season pass thing or DLC or microtransactions or games as a service.
And I know this is another conversation, but it's like again these budgetary concerns they blow my mind because you might not necessarily have these budgetary concerns if you stopped saying to people that graphics are the most important thing. We're going to invest $15 million of our budget into, I don't know, animating glass shards or stuff like that. It's like, yes, it's something that allows people to be immersed in it, but they're not the gameplay.
No.
Focus on the bloody gameplay first.
I think and we can kind of pivot for the last bit about how would you save Anthem at this point, because I think if you made it free to play, you focused on
that would be my first step.
Yeah, make it free to play and focus on the gunplay and the flying. I mean, one of the biggest things that keeps getting in the way of their updates is they keep changing the drop rates and the loot and the general sort of feel of reward. I mean, it's right there in the Kotaku report that they literally said their strengths aren't in military ordnance and guns and stuff like that. So when they came to developing all these different weapons, they are very rote, because he has an assault rifle, he has a shotgun. It needs a complete loot overhaul, really. But gameplay, like you said, is the core of it, and it does play really well. It's hampered in terms of the flight because you can only fly for so long before you just fall out the sky. But there's a version in there that is a great loop of a really tight loot system, good gunplay, and a way to get from A to B by flying as a group.
If it was up to me, I would try and tackle one of the core concepts of Anthem, which is it's a potentially fun game that's hampered by a lot of excess counter fun. And I would do things like make it free to play, do mutator months, where basically for each month you would go on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, for 48 hours, we're going to do something crazy, as in you have unlimited flight, or you have every weapon you get from every raid boss is going to be X rarity or higher, so that it gives people an incentive to go back, or you can now do damage to your teammates, or something like that. You know what I mean? Just like, just to make stuff fun, like do mutated things on it, because that's the way that you find out what works with your community, and you get more of a sort of like, oh look, they like this.
It's going to be such a hard thing, because at some point they have to have a level of commitment to it, and they've said that they're committed to it, but something like that would kind of require maybe a more dynamic open world, because the things that happen in the story, I actually didn't mind the story. I thought it was fine. I quite liked the characters, and I thought they went in decent directions. It's manufactured, but there's enough heart in it where I kind of believe that they were struggling against this, the Anthem itself and all these different demons that come out and whatever. And I quite like the cliffhanger that it hinges on. It is Bioware 101, like the ancient race that hold all the secrets.
They've got one story and they tell it very well.
Yeah, but it's like, they said we've got this 10-year content roadmap and we're going to roll out these story events across the year. And it's like, if you literally treat it like a TV season and go okay, we're gonna delve back into the fate of this realm, or this race or whatever in a month's time, you can bring that all back together and you can kind of build the community around that, waiting for certain plot twists or whatever. If you tie that into the gameplay side, like I said, you would need map changes, but you could totally do certain forts being under siege, and you need do your bit, log in, defend this fort.
That would work.
There are things that they can do that they show the cutscene version of in the story that I think would work in the long term. But again, I can't help but go back to the Kotaku thing that just literally pointed out these things were put in last minute. The world is not very well designed because they went back and forward on the flight implementation.
Effectively, the game you're playing is the last third.
It was the best they could do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have a creative focus, as is evident by the creative side of it, moving on to other things. So it's going to be very hard, but I wonder if it might be better to just pull the plug.
Well, I mean, let us know what you think about it down in the comments section below. I mean, are you playing Anthem right now? Are you enjoying it? If so, what would you say is the sort of reason to defend it? Or if you are completely against it, why did you quit playing it? Let us know down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter.
I've been Scott. You can follow me at @/LP89.
And if you want to catch up more on late Anthem news or anything that's been going on in the gaming world, you can subscribe to WhatCulture Gaming. So yes, we will speak to you soon. Remember, you have been awesome. Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.